What began as a routine Friday afternoon in August 2023 quickly became a nightmare inside a Pensacola Home Depot. 18-year-old Brooklyn Sims had just started her inventory shift in the lighting department when she was fatally shot. The gunman was not a stranger. It was her former partner and the father of her child, 20-year-old Keith Agee. Keith was apprehended shortly after the shooting and later surrendered to authorities in Alabama. At the sheriff's office, he waived his rights and described the volatile 4-year relationship he had shared with Brooklyn. Despite a court order requiring them to stay apart, the two had continued communicating and had even spent what Keith described as a peaceful weekend together just days earlier. That peace shattered after Keith received a call from a health clinic informing him he had been diagnosed with an infection he claimed he had never had before. Convinced Brooklyn had betrayed him, his emotions spiraled from hurt into rage. He drove to the Home Depot furious, though he later admitted that seeing Brooklyn in person caused him to hesitate, briefly. When she dismissed his accusations and tried to walk away, Keith drew his gun and fired multiple times. Brooklyn was killed, and 2 bystanders were wounded. Keith was charged with first-degree murder and held without bond. The investigation took a disturbing turn when detectives performed a forensic download of Keith's phone. They uncovered a lengthy text message exchange between Keith and his mother, Sheila Agee, which began hours before the shooting. Sheila was working at the same Home Depot that day and actively updated Keith on Brooklyn's location. She told him which department Brooklyn was assigned to when she arrived for her shift and when she appeared to be alone, information that proved critical to the timing of the attack. In the messages, Keith openly stated his intention to kill Brooklyn. Rather than discouraging him, Sheila encouraged the plan. She insulted him, calling him weak and a coward if he failed to go through with it, and warned him not to involve anyone who might stop him. At no point did she suggest contacting law enforcement, intervening, or protecting Brooklyn. Instead, she reinforced Keith's violent resolve, framing the murder as inevitable and justified. Sheila even offered logistical advice. She cautioned Keith not to shoot near her car so it wouldn't be damaged or draw suspicion, and chillingly suggested that killing Brooklyn at the store would spare him from having to do it in front of his young daughter. The messages revealed a cold, calculated mindset, one focused not on preventing harm, but on minimizing inconvenience and consequences. Perhaps most damning, Sheila repeatedly instructed Keith to delete the messages after sending them, demonstrating clear awareness that the conversations were criminal. Investigators noted that attempts to conceal evidence are often powerful indicators of intent and complicity. The text showed not only foreknowledge of the crime but active facilitation before, during, and immediately after the planning phase. Based on this evidence, detectives concluded that Sheila was not a passive observer or a frightened parent trying to manage a volatile situation. She was an active participant who helped plan, encouraged, and emotionally fueled the murder. Prosecutors later emphasized that without Sheila's guidance and reinforcement, the crime may not have unfolded the way it did. As a result, Sheila Agee was arrested and charged as a principal to first-degree murder, facing the same severity of consequences as the man who pulled the trigger. Sheila's legal journey was as turbulent as it was unprecedented. Her first trial collapsed into a mistrial, a stunning outcome that drew public outrage. Reports emerged that some jurors appeared disengaged. One was allegedly doing crossword puzzles, while others expressed fear amid tense and emotionally charged deliberations. The case, already disturbing, now carried an added sense of instability and unfinished justice. When Sheila's second trial began in August 2025, prosecutors returned fully prepared to remove any remaining doubt. This time, they presented the case not as a tragedy of misplaced words, but as a deliberate orchestration of murder. Over the course of the trial, 16 witnesses took the stand. Jurors heard expert testimony, investigative findings, and most devastating of all, the digital evidence recovered from both Keith's and Sheila's phones. Messages that laid bare intent, encouragement, and coordination in chilling detail. The defense worked aggressively to reframe the narrative. They argued that Keith was a habitual boaster, prone to violent talk but rarely action. They claimed Sheila's cruel language was not encouragement, but reverse psychology, a misguided attempt to provoke him into calming down. Keith himself testified, insisting he acted entirely on his own and that the messages were nothing more than a place to vent rage. Sheila also took the stand, portraying herself as a grieving grandmother, a woman who claimed to love Brooklyn and who never believed her son would actually walk into a store with a gun. But prosecutors dismantled that version piece by piece. They asked the questions that lingered heavily in the courtroom. If Sheila feared for Brooklyn, why didn't she warn her? Why didn't she call the police? Why didn't she stop responding? Instead, prosecutors reminded the jury Sheila provided Brooklyn's location, reinforced Keith's resolve, advised him on logistics, and urged him to delete evidence afterward. Those were not the actions of a helpless bystander. They were the actions of an accomplice. The jury needed little time. After deliberating for less than an hour, they returned with a unanimous verdict. Sheila Agee was found guilty as a principal to first-degree murder. She was sentenced to life in prison, a sentence that placed her behind bars alongside her son, both held accountable for the killing of 18-year-old Brooklyn Sims, a young woman whose life was cut short by not only the man who pulled the trigger, but the mother who helped set the crime in motion.